No, no! No! Are you listening?
The Lorne vortex we talked about yesterday, the end goal was that he would get a different answer. It would soften the impact of whatever is hitting him so hard emotionally. Or someone is going to say something that is going to change his attitude, his mind, his emotional state. Just praying that someone can talk him down from the ledge. But we all know Lorne loves screaming and yelling. It makes him feel better. It's the only way he knows how to respond to any emotional stimuli. We are going to talk about Lorne's verbal exorcism. And this is something that I guess cults like Scientology use and other therapy sessions. It's where you say something that is traumatic or bothering you, and you say the same things over and over again, trying to take the power off those words. Unfortunately for Lorne, he doesn't ever speak what's really bothering him. He doesn't ever speak the past traumatic experiences or anything that truly had an effect on him. He picks and chooses what he wants to use because he thinks they're the most pathetic or sympathetic, and he just spits them out there in the hopes that people will go, "Oh, Lorne, that's terrible." But I can't think of one Lorne story where anyone said, "Oh, Lorne, that's terrible." I don't even know if he tried the physical abuse or sexual abuse angle and anyone went, "Oh, Lorne, that's terrible." I remember a few times the catfish women feigned like they felt bad for him, but they really didn't. And I think even at one point they were put on mute or something and they were laughing in the background. But that's not what I'm talking about. Lorne will call and he'll scream and yell, and everything that's bothering him, like he thinks they're cheating on him, he just says it out loud, and that's the Lorne vortex, hoping that they will convince him otherwise so he doesn't have to feel the way he does. But he's also hoping he removes its control over him, because remember, Lorne is all about control. And his emotions, think about this, he's fighting against his own emotions for control. His little cornmeal pea brain is trying to wrestle back control of what he's doing. I'll give you an example. The wrecking ball. When his Mother's Day was, quote, ruined, unquote, by Debbie not calling him or texting him, and by a simple comment from Angel O, and his whole Mother's Day was ruined. I have had a day like that. Not a Mother's Day, but I have had a day where I was untreated, bipolar 2, and something bothered me, and I let it affect everything I did. I let it affect my decision making. I was angry, grumpy, took it out on other people. This is when I was younger. It was something I shouldn't have done, but I remember the feeling of being out of control. My son has some issues, great kid, has some issues. There's a point, especially in young children, when I call it the overheated cat. It's where they're breathing really hard, and they might be looking like almost glazed over in the eyes, like they're out of control. Control is the theme here, obviously. And it was how I recognized that he was struggling with some severe ODD, ADHD. We took him to an actively working professional, and they felt the same way. Once they put Merrick on some medication, low dose, his behavior changed. He's still not perfect. He's still impulsive. He definitely has impulse control disorder. And I understand it. And sometimes my ex thinks I'm giving him an out because I'm explaining what's going on in his head. I just want him to understand the triggers. Lorne, I will give him credit with this verbal exorcism crap I'm talking about. He was talking to a therapist who mentioned the word trigger. Lorne picked up on the word trigger because in some of I think it might have been actually the Trigger for My Valentine call, he mentions the word trigger. Because we know if he hears a buzzword and he can use it to explain away his behavior, he's going to spit it out. Because that's who he is. I think Lorne loves and hates himself, much like at times I love and hate myself for some of the things I've done in my past. Nothing illegal, just the way I've treated some people in the past. I don't know if that's what he hates, but I do think part of what he hates is the fact that he's not in control at some points. And when you're drinking, you give up complete control. And then he wakes up the next morning, and sometimes he's sad. Most of the time he's trying to be, please forgive me, just come back, please don't leave me, please don't leave me. I love you so much, it hurts. There's a Ramona voicemail message that makes me feel so good. He had spent the entire night being a complete douchebag, and she said go away. We talked about this. And the next morning he's leaving all sorts of, you got a lot of explaining to do, you need to call me so we can figure this shit out. What the fuck happened last night? And then it was, babe, I don't know what to do, God, I love you. And he goes into that, pathetic beg for forgiveness. It's just a sweet moment I listen to when I'm having a bad day. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that he unknowingly, I think he's doing self-therapy, the screaming and the yelling, because they have screaming therapy, but I don't think that's the therapy I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is he feels if he says the same things over and over, that each time he says it, he's going to feel a little better. It might change what he's thinking when he says it, or he might tire himself out. Lorne knows when he yells, he tires himself out. So he just screams and screams until he crashes. That's something that a bipolar person understands. They scream and scream until they crash. Once it's done, and they realize how they've been acting, or they just can't act that anyway anymore, they don't even have to realize how they're acting. They just kind of have to understand how they're feeling, which is exhausted. It's almost not orgasmic, but it's the feeling like after sex, where all of that tension and everything is gone, and you're left with nothing but the aftermath, the afterglow, as Moriarty said in Sherlock. But that's pretty much what Lorne does, trying to get those thoughts out of his head, trying to take the power away. Mix that with the Lorne vortex, trying to get a new answer, trying to soften the impact, trying to change his emotional state. Just praying that a catalyst is going to come along and fix whatever it is that's going on in his head. Lorne, his therapy hasn't been working. His therapist is terrible. Or maybe he or she is awesome, and he just doesn't get it, or he just doesn't hear it, which is more likely what happens. We know he picks out those little words, like couldn't say no, which was referring to giving away money, not why he tried to diddle Kayla. I don't know if they've ever told him, look, Lorne, maybe they did with the trigger thing I was talking about, but I don't know if they ever told him, look, Lorne, you brought this on yourself. Your anger is misplaced. You need to focus on yourself, because he won't. They told him to stop talking to these catfish women, and he said, screw you, these people are real. They're my friends. Oh, he's so dumb. And he's going to keep getting catfish forever. And I know they told him to stop drinking, and he said, screw you, I'm going to keep drinking. And they told him he has to start taking responsibility for his actions. And the only thing he took responsibility for was getting caught up in the sting. He was a victim, remember? All those real victims before. I wonder, I'm going to hypothesize for a moment, prophesy. I wonder if MySpace Molly and some of these other underage girls he were talking to got verbally abused by him, got yelled at, and maybe that's why he didn't do it with Kayla. Because when he got with the legal age catfish women, he just went balls to the wall screaming. And that's a little off topic, but I think his therapist should probably explain to him, Lorne, no matter how much you scream and yell, it's just going to do damage. Play him back to wrecking ball calls, where he basically disrupts everyone's life and tries to really screw up a woman who's in the hospital, fighting for survival. He needs to understand that screaming and yelling like that isn't going to help. It's not going to take the power of those words away. It's not going to take the power of your thoughts away. You're going to have to tell yourself, look, moron, this isn't really happening. I have no proof of this happening. But he's Lorne. He'll never change. I hope this video gave some more insight into this moron's head. I love you guys. Please like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you in the next one.
hurt